A good PSYOPS campaign strives to dislocate focus and create blur. The propagandist hopes to move the focus to something beneficial and create blur around everything damning to his or her own position. Cardano seems to have been the victim of this for some time now. Luckily or unluckily, depending on your perspective, a good crypto winter tends to collapse superfluous narratives and lay bare all the reigning untruths. While this doesn't happen overnight or even as fast as we would want, it does happen eventually. And this time around, it's looking like Cardano will be the big beneficiary. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss a very interesting new report from Kraken, Telegraph's very peculiar coverage of Revuto, Pavia closing in on a new website and map UI, and a lot of information from the Virtua AMA Twitter space today. If this scene reminds you a little bit too much of late night eateries you might have frequented after nights out on the town, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the army of spies stake pool ticker AOS. Ever since the revelations about Cambridge Analytica and the role it played in affecting elections around the world, we've known that social media can be an extremely powerful tool to sway the public's perception of almost any issue. And it definitely seems like over the last few years that Cardano has also been a victim of this effectiveness of social media. I don't know how exactly this happened, what kicked it off, what sustained it, but I think we can all agree that social media has not been kind to Cardano. Actually, that's not exactly true. The social media connections, plural, I guess, between all of the members of the Cardano ecosystem has been one of the strongest things about Cardano. But the amount of negative energy focused on Cardano from outside the ecosystem has also been extremely impressive and surprising. We could come up with some pretty fun conspiracy theories about how all this started, but I think the more interesting part is how it's probably going to end. This is Kraken's monthly sort of report to the entire crypto space, Crypto On-Chain Digest. This July edition is called Ticking Lower. They tell you right in the introduction how they came up with that name. It's because crypto assets fell by a substantial margin in May, and the crypto market ticked even lower this month as market participants withdrew their risk appetite further. And, this report is, a lot of what you'd expect. They have a lot of constituents. Kraken services a wide spectrum of communities, and they try to make it a little bit balanced so that it appeals to all those communities and doesn't really single anybody out. This is great. This is great because it creates an environment where they kind of have to present unbiased data. And there's a narrative that goes along with this. And in the narrative, there's some interpretation that goes on, but we do end up with some straight data. And you can see they're going to throw down some things here that are going to make the Bitcoin people happy, like Bitcoin market dominance year to date increasing by 3%. It's the only one year to date that's green. This is always expected in a crypto bear market. In a crypto bear market, BTC tends to gain some market dominance. Then they have a section on transaction fees. While Ethereum has seen the worst fall in terms of transaction fees, this is also a great little graph and table to appeal to the Ethereum audience to remind them they're still the kings of charging way too much for all of their transactions. Then we get to a different kind of chart. This chart is about daily on-chain volume, and it shows us something that bucks the narrative about Cardano. A big piece of the narrative about Cardano, besides Charles Hoskinson bad, that's like the most common strand running through all of the criticism about Cardano, is the Charles Hoskinson bad concept that never seems to be supported by very much evidence at all. But the other theme is that no one uses Cardano. There are no developers in Cardano. No one I know is developing on Cardano, famously in the words of Mike Novogratz, roughly. But again, Kraken has to present some actual unadulterated data in this report. And when they do, we see this. It's Cardano that's seen the biggest year-to-date gain in daily on-chain volume. And that's not because we have a tiny volume. It's the case that we actually have a gigantic volume. On January 1st, Cardano was doing 2.5 billion in daily on-chain volume, whereas Bitcoin was only doing 14 billion and Ethereum was only doing 8.3 billion. When we fast forward to May 31st of this year, we see Cardano's doing 11.8 billion. Bitcoin's only doing 11.9 billion and Ethereum's only doing 4.2 billion. But that wasn't just like an odd day where we had a gigantic surge or something. The very next month, last day of June 30th, Cardano did 8 billion. Bitcoin did 10.9 billion and Ethereum only did 2.9 billion. For its part, Kraken gives us this explanation of the data. They say, though there's no definitive driver for the growth in ADA on-chain volume, several notable developments have taken place on the Cardano blockchain. Namely, the platform likely saw increased volume due to its launch of SundaeSwap, the first decentralized finance DeFi exchange on the Cardano blockchain. So if you're familiar with Cardano, you know that that's not entirely accurate. MusiSwap was actually the first DEX launched on Cardano. SundaeSwap was the first AMM. But in addition to that, we've also had many other DEXs launch on the Cardano blockchain, either launch or about to launch. And you might sort of chalk this more up to just the use of the smart contracts in Cardano in general. Next, they say gaming application Pavia, the first ever metaverse project on the blockchain. Okay, you could say that. And developers increased the blockchain's block size limit by 10%, to name a few key developments. There were a bunch of parameter increases, not just the block size limit increase of 10%, but I mean, they don't mention our very, very vibrant, NFT scene and how big that's gotten. But largely, this is just the launch of smart contracts in Cardano. Interestingly, the very next thing they come with is on-chain volume for Algo remains the worst performer this year at negative 81%. Sometimes it's easy to forget in Cardano that as great as our numbers are, we could be in a very different position. I mean, Cardano has seen a 218% year-to-date increase in daily on-chain volume. Algo has seen a negative 81% decrease. Kraken is a centralized exchange. They have constituents in almost every single large cap blockchain because they are trying to be the fiat on-ramp for all of the users of those large cap blockchains. So they have to maintain their status as sort of a neutral third party when it comes to this kind of data. It's going to be very difficult for the critics of Cardano to say that no one's using Cardano when even Kraken, who has an incentive to be fair and balanced, Kraken has no incentive to be unfair to all the blockchains and give Cardano preferential treatment. They have an incentive to be fair with all the blockchains because they have constituents in all the blockchains. When even Kraken is showing such phenomenal growth in Cardano like this, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to say that nobody's using Cardano. Credit to Subcritical for pointing out that page in the Kraken report. Here's another report, this time from Cointelegraph. Cointelegraph, not kind of notorious for not being our friends. It's not that we're not friendly towards Cointelegraph. It's more that their coverage of our ecosystem doesn't seem very friendly toward us. And this is an example of that. Here they say, Croatian Web3 startup offers lifetime Netflix and Spotify membership via NFTs. Cool headline, seems very innovative. And if you follow the Cardano ecosystem, you know they're talking about Revuto. They say the subscription-based unique NFT is capped at 10,000, and buyers will receive a digital debit card along with the NFT to pay for their subscription. They said on Friday, Web3 subscription and ticketing solution provider Revuto announced a novel subscription model for Netflix and Spotify using a non-fungible token NFT solution. These subscription NFTs can be traded on crypto exchanges as well, allowing for the growth of a secondary market for these types of NFTs. Once the NFT changes hands, the old user's digital debit card would get canceled and the new owner would be provided with a fresh debit card. So I think if somebody's reading this and they're not familiar with Revuto and they're not familiar with Cardano, they would read this and think, good for Web3. This is great for Web3. You know who else it's also great for? Cardano. So, of course, Cointelegraph doesn't point out that part. They never mention the blockchain that Revuto runs on. They never mention that Revuto is a part of the Cardano ecosystem. Why? Who knows? Instead, they just call them Croatian Web3 startup. They could have called them Croatian Web3 Cardano startup or Cardano startup or Croatian Cardano startup or Cardano Web3 startup, anything to apply what blockchain this project is a part of. But no, not at Cointelegraph, because apparently that doesn't match some kind of narrative they're trying to maintain about the lack of something in Cardano. To be fair, when you go to the page for these NFTs on the Revuto website, you do see buy on Ethereum and also buy on Cardano. So I guess Cointelegraph could use that as an excuse to say that these NFTs are cross-chain, and so it isn't as relevant to specify what blockchain they're on. However, when you go to the buy on Ethereum OpenSea side and pop open that little button, what you see is buy on Cardano, CNFT, NFT maker for pretty much all of the possible options here. So even if somebody reads the Cointelegraph article, assumes it's an EVM only project, comes here and clicks on the buy on Ethereum side, they're still going to be confronted with buy on Cardano. So no matter how much the optics have been blurred, at the end of the day, people are still going to figure out that this project is a part of the Cardano ecosystem. Pavia announced today that they're closing in on a few new things. They said our new website and brand refresh is done, and we're working on the new map user interface before shipping in full. They're working closely with Ready Player Me to bring you OG Avatar merchandise. The first section of the Pavia Plaza is still on track. It's huge. They will also be showing us the stadium soon. Once they've delivered the above items, they will be testing Pavia compatible assets at scale as per the roadmap, then adding the on-site land marketplace, which was pushed back just a little to deliver the new map user interface as per the community vote. So it looks like we're going to be getting quite a bit of activity out of Pavia pretty soon. I'm excited. I think a lot of people have kind of been holding our breath, sort of waiting to see what Pavia was actually going to deliver. I think people have a lot of hope about what Pavia can be, and hopefully soon we'll start getting the first sort of wider glimpses of whether or not that matches up with our expectations. We also got a Twitter Space AMA out of Virtua about Cardano Island, and there was quite a bit of information in here that I think might end up being important for people who are interested in this project. So we're going to kind of try to go through this pretty quickly and just hit the highlights because it was a pretty long AMA. So they said minting will start again on Tuesday, which should be today, the day you're watching this video, if you're watching it on the day it comes out. Sounds like the minting on day 2 with Anvil went much smoother than the minting on day 1. I think a lot of people, encountered some stumbles and frustrations as they tried to mint on day 1. It sounds like the team had to pull an all-nighter just to get integrated with Anvil so that they could launch that on day 2. I personally really applaud this kind of adaptability. I even personally had my day 1 minted deed by the time I woke up on day 2. They were sort of delivering those NFTs as they went through and did certain verifications. And I think people were a little bit worried on day 1 about whether or not they'd get those NFTs in some cases. But I sent in a quick message to support before I went to bed on day 1. And when I woke up on day 2, my deed was already there in my wallet. So all pretty easy. So really, even the day one minting inconveniences were pretty minimal on my end. I mean, of course, you prefer that your NFT shows up the second you mint it, but even on day one, I was pretty confident that it was going to show up eventually, and it was there by the time I was up and about on day two. They said that different NFTs will have different uses in Cardano Island as to the different summit NFTs. In 1 month, you might have the turtle and the stingrays doing one thing, but the next month, that effect may be gone. So we know that the parcels in Cardano Island, they have slots for the summit NFTs, and it sounds like in a certain month there may be a combination of a couple of those summit NFTs that does one thing for you. I don't know if this is going to be like increasing the emission rate of resources in your parcel or what, but it sounds like that might change from month to month. In 1 month, it might be a combination of two of the seven summit NFTs. In another month, it may be something totally differently. They also got a question about whether skyscraper owners will be able to rent out condos. And the answer was that yes, in the future. They're working with a project called Ember on this, and Ember goes to alpha in October. They got a question about OG compensation for pre-mint difficulties. The OGs are the day one pre-mint people who had the Cardano Summit NFTs. The answer was that there would be a special VFlect mint for free, and these would be fully 3D rig models. So that's something they brought up over and over throughout this AMA, that all of the NFTs they're trying to put out are all 3D rig models, which will show up that way in the Virtua metaverses, including Cardano Island. I guess it sounds like they refer to all of Virtua Prime as a metaverse, and Cardano Island is a part of that. Will bots be free, or will some need to be bought? They said if you have all 7 Summit NFTs, there will be a free mint on the bots. What can ADA be used for on Cardano Island? Buying resources, buying NFTs. They said the payment method for everything will be ADA. How many NFT spots in the large fan cave? Though the fan caves will be highly configurable, they're not quite sure of the upper limit. Ash currently has 13 in his fan cave. More land cells on Cardano Island? The answer was that the plan was to have 9,999 plots and 3,000 condos, and that's it. There are no plans for more plots. If the community wanted more condos, though, they'd be willing to work with them. Any games at launch? Maybe 1 or 2 games in alpha by then. And they talked about the various games they've got in development. How is Virtua distinguished from Pavia or Cornucopias? So the answer to this question was kind of interesting. They talked about the sort of the shift from Web 2 metaverses to Web 3. And they pointed out that Web 2 metaverses like Roblox might have 30 million daily users, while Web 3 metaverses like Sandbox might have 20 to 30,000 users. So a gigantic margin between these Web 2 platforms like Roblox and these Web 3 metaverses like Sandbox and Decentraland and all the ones that are being built on Cardano. The number of users is vastly different. So Virtua is really trying to think bigger, and they believe that means they have to be multi-chain because they really want to be the Ready Player One type universe. They really want to achieve what everybody read about in the book and at least saw in the movie. They want it to be that kind of digital universe. And that's part of their rationale about being multi-chain. Will anything be done for the holders of plots with common rarity, or is it just game over for the common plot holders? So they pointed out, you'll notice that legendary plots don't produce sticky goo or wood, while common plots do. So legendary plot holders will need to buy it somewhere if they want to create an NFT that requires it. He also mentioned that even other players in Virtua Prime might have to come to Cardano Island because it has resources they don't have that they need for something. I thought this was a decent attempt, at least, at an explanation, but it seems like it's not really going to make up for the fact that the common plots don't have a land bot slot. I think that's going to turn out to be a huge misstep on the part of Virtua, not giving even one landbot slot to the common holders. I think they should have just started at one and then given the rarer plots, just one additional slot beyond that in each case. We'll see how it actually turns out in practice. Maybe once the metaverse actually launches, the common plot holders won't actually care. Maybe it won't have that big an effect. What perks will exist for having all 7 NFTs? Also, this is all 7 Cardano Summit NFTs. So they mentioned there will be unique structures. There will be the bot mint, which has been already revealed. And there's other things that will come up for the holders of all 7 Summit NFTs that they haven't revealed yet. Will there be royalties from NFTs we craft on Cardano Island? This is an interesting question. And I interpreted this as royalties from subsequent sales of the NFTs. Like if you craft the NFT and then you sell it to someone and there are royalties built into that NFT, will there be royalties for whoever crafts it originally? This is how I'm interpreting this question. Let me know if you don't think this is correct. But the answer was that it does make sense. They've had discussions about it, but it's not locked in yet. And Ash said it's quite likely, to be honest. During an answer to a question about the free bot mint, Ash joked, "Thank God it's not Ethereum. That would kill us." It's good, in my opinion, it's good to see projects like this already appreciating the much cheaper transaction fees on Cardano. I mean, we've always kind of theorized that one of the really attractive things about Cardano was going to be that it hits this really good balance in terms of the 3 legs of the blockchain trilemma. But at the same time, it's much, 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 much cheaper than a blockchain like Ethereum. They also said they've got some really good Bollywood announcements coming. It sounds like these are going to be sort of these celebrity deals, kind of like the Kevin Hart deal, where they might be creating, special areas in Virtua Prime just for the communities of, say, Bollywood stars. They know they've got to win the trust of the Cardano community, but they want to let their work and the actual deliveries do the task of silencing the critics. So I thought it was good. They acknowledge the Cardano community is still sort of getting to know Virtua, and they know they've got to win the trust of all of us in the Cardano community. And I love that they said that they're going to let their work and their actual deliveries do all the talking for them. They also explained they slowed down their NFT market activities because they think in the future, anyone will be able to spin up an NFT marketplace like a WordPress website today. I thought this was a really interesting observation about the moatlessness of certain types of Web3 platforms. I think there's a strong sort of open source ethos in Cardano, which is great, and it leads to a lot of efficiencies. But for current NFT marketplaces, the open availability of the code for a thing like an NFT marketplace might make it hard for some of these NFT marketplaces that currently exist to really have an effective moat for longer periods of time as, tools get rolled out for anyone to create, various types of platforms in a Web3 era. They also mentioned that their TVK coin was able to pass all the due diligence to get listed on both Kraken and Binance. I think this is by way of explaining to the Cardano ecosystem, hey, we've been vetted by organizations like Kraken and Binance. There's nothing really here we're hiding. We're kind of, legit guys in the crypto space. Will there be a closed beta for plot holders? The answer was yes. Will there be Oculus compatibility? The answer was also yes, but they mentioned that Oculus doesn't really like metaverses. And by that, they didn't mean the technology or the hardware. It sounded like they meant the team, like the Oculus team doesn't really like metaverses. Can you build a virtual store on your land? They said it's an API issue. Their plan is to build store APIs, but it's not part 1. Part 1 will be focused on game APIs and letting avatar builders participate. This was kind of interesting. So as far as people coming in and building things inside of of Virtua Prime, it sounds like, or at least Cardano Island. It sounds like they're more focused on like game developers coming in and building games inside the metaverse, and avatars building avatars. And, somewhere down the line, a lower priority is letting people come in and build real commerce storefront type things inside Cardano Island. Ash doesn't think that metaverse commerce has really been figured out yet. And I think he might have a good point on this. It sounds like Virtua would be more likely to let someone else come in and build out metaverse commerce, or build out metaverse commerce somewhere else, and then they would just integrate it. They made the point they can't build out everything, and somebody else might do a better job at building up metaverse commerce. And they think they're more focused on things like gaming and the actual metaverse and gamification of the metaverse, and they'll be happy to just integrate other things as others build them out, like metaverse commerce. Any difference between the square and rectangular plots? They're still having internal discussions on this, but they'll have different buildings that will work on each. Whether or not there will be other differences hasn't really been decided yet. Summit NFTs, are they to be burned when placed in land slots? They said no. They definitely want the Summit NFTs to have ongoing value and to be kept and hodled by the Cardano community. They even mentioned that they knew that Cornucopias was planning some kind of utility for the Cardano Summit NFTs in Cornucopias. I think this was great. They're not trying to have us, kill off our Cardano Summit NFTs so that nobody else can use them. They talked a lot about communicating with other metaverse teams inside Cardano and everybody kind of working together. I thought that was really great to hear. They also mentioned that the large plots are already sold out. So good to hear that another Cardano metaverse project had some good luck on selling out at least their largest plots just in the first 2 days of this land sale that's going to continue this week. I hope you are having a fantastic week, and I will talk to you tomorrow.